Hello, my fellow readers. This is Dark Symphony 777 with another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative for everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, the story I am doing a review of is Total Drama Endless by Nondescript Norbert. It is a total drama exorific. And what can I say about this story? It's good. The story is very, very, very good. To be honest, I'm only the only complaints I have are relatively very, very minor. I'm still gonna bring them up at the end, but I thought I mentioned that there's not gonna be a lot. There's gonna be barely anything bad to talk about. But let's get to the review. So, how does this story match up against the other three Total Drama fics that I've reviewed over time, which, as in Total Drama Everything, Total Drama Infinite, and Total Drama Cruise? This story is very, very different from the other three. In essence, this story takes place on a 2-act system. On the first half, you have a more traditional total drama story where you have the host, this man right here, Connor O'Gleason. Oh my god, that's gonna be so confusing. Who is based off Conan O'Brien. I don't know if he's still in the late night talk show thing. I think he retired. I don't know. And he, of course, the traditional total drama crossover thing of he brings in a lot of stuff, people from other fandoms to just mess around with. Except he's not really messing around with. He basically just wants to play a game. I'll talk more about Connor when I get to the characters, so just bear with me. So basically, the first act is a more traditional total drama, as traditional as this story can get, with a more emphasis on comedy. The first half is more comedic in tone. It's trying to set the stage for the second half, and it's very well done. Basically, in the first half, for the most part, the challenges, there is no real clear-cut challenges. It's just, there are 3 statues of Chris McLean hidden somewhere in the world. The first team to find it, because there's 3 teams here, not only wins, but they also get a special prize. If they grab the silver Chris McLean statue, they just win, but they don't get the prize. And if they get the bronze one, they have to send someone home, which is how things work. Granted, different chapters kind of switch things up, so there is a very clear difference in how everything is presented. But for the most part, the challenge just boils down to find the 3 statues are hidden somewhere. Find it. Doesn't happen all the time, but it happens most of the time. However, once you get to the halfway point, once you get to the merge, that's when this story becomes something completely different. Something I didn't think was possible. Something honestly breathtaking. In the halfway point. So Act 1 is chapters 1 to 20. The reason I know Act 1 technically, I believe, ends in here, but I would argue that Act 1 really ends right here. Connor brings everyone to Hogwarts. He wishes them well. He gives them a party. He lets them celebrate with everyone, and basically hangs out with the Harry Potter crew. like Snape. Because it can't be a Harry Potter fic without Snape dunking on everyone. 10 points from Gryffindor. Why? Because I don't like you, Potter. Why? 10 points from Gryffindor. But I just said, why? Do you want to make it 20? No? Good. 10 points from Hufflepuff. Why? Because no one cares about you guys. Which is good finders. I don't know what the hell a Hufflepuff is, but it sounds very rabid. Yeah. Yeah, but we're humble. I don't know what humble is. I'm Snape. I don't know where I was going with that. However, at the end of it, Connor gathers all the interns, salutes them, and only tells them, follow the story. And leaves them there. He just leaves them there. And so the story turns from a traditional contest to a quite honestly amazing old school adventure story where everyone is just trying to follow the story because they find out that in order for them to advance, not only do they have to leave some behind, but also the fact that technically all of them have to follow the story of whatever world they're in at the time. So, for instance, with Hogwarts, they have to follow the plot of whatever year of Hogwarts they were in. I think this was. I wouldn't say. I think it's present. No, not prisoner. Maybe I think this is probably Order of the Phoenix. Not sure. I honestly hope. Oh, I get like a mention of what specific year the Harry Potter thing took place in. Then you also have a love later chapter, which is just basically Willy Wonka. And Willy Wonka just takes him to through the factory. He's like, here's the thing, here's the chocolate river, here's the TV room, here's squirrels, lots of squirrels. They're learning. Bad nuts, bad nuts. Yeah. And that's basically more or less how all these chapters work, except for Simpsons, because that story doesn't have a plot, and some of the characters even kind of call it out when Connor shows up in that chapter. It's like, hey, you're taking too long. It's like you're supposed to follow the story. It's like, this doesn't have a plot. How are we supposed to know? You got a point. Can I offer a riddle? Riddle? Yeah. And yeah, it becomes a sense of grandeur. It becomes a sense of wonder because everything changes each and every chapter. There's always something new to look forward to. There's always some world for them to explore and meet new people, and it has a sense of grandeur that I don't think any of the other three stories ever did. Like they all tried. Don't get me wrong, they all tried to have that sense of grandeur. But Endless is the only story of the four to actually truly capture that feeling of adventure, of wonder, of amazement, of seeing these people, these finalists, the merge contestants, all unite, and they just stop. Hell, they stop treating the game like a contest. They just want to see it through. It's like, we don't care. We don't care who wins at this point. We all just want to see this to the end and just try and make it to Connor and just survive and live. And it really does hit you in the heart with its very much thematic storytelling, especially with the winner. Oh yeah, she did. Oh yeah, she deserved it. But let's move on to the characters. And what better place to start with the characters than with the winner, Paisine, Princess Peach. Almost got me there. Oh, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Peach. Now, one thing I want to bring up is what themes are used in the story. It's mainly just one theme. One big theme. and that is perception. The idea of everyone being perceived in a different way and how it affects these characters. Because, spoiler alerts, these characters find out they are fictional. Like there's a big cast of characters, the 27, and that actually affects them. It mainly comes down to Princess Peach and Indiana Jones. These are more or less the two main characters in the story. Granted, there's also Beatrice from Over the Garden Wall, but she's not. I wouldn't say she's as important as Indy and Peach. But I will say that when it comes to, sorry about that. I had to take a call real quick. Where was I? Oh yes, with the characters, I wouldn't say this has the best over. Wait, was I talking about? Oh my god, the call was so important. I completely forgot what I was supposed to be talking about. All right. Okay. Let's backtrack a little bit because I think I was supposed to talk about Peach. Because I realized I missed it. I missed a thing before bringing up Peach. Let's backtrack. When it comes to the overall crew, I will say this is probably not the best crew of the four stories. I would argue that Total Drama Infinite by Mean King probably has the best overall crew because I always prefer with these types of stories that sets up everyone has something to do. Everyone has like a separate identity and separate like feelings and just giving everyone everything to do. And I think Mean King did a perfect job with that. With this story, everyone before the merge, with the exception of Tomoko, the three people who got eliminated before the merge, and kind of sort of Dipper, are all cannon fodder. They are literally just there. Granted, some of them are used for like little in jokes and stuff like that as references to the various shows, like in chapter 3 when they're in Los Santos, i.e. GTA. There's a little part where Perry the Platypus, because of course Perry's there, they do a gag to Phineas and Ferb when Perry stole someone's bike and he gave him $50. He's like, hey, that gave me $50 for his scooter. Give it up. And just basically convinces Dipper's like, hey, ride with me. And there's lots of little in jokes on that. However, I do think this it's kind of a sort of double-edged sword because the author was trying to specifically focus on specific characters. So there's a lot of characters that have a lot of heavy focus on them, especially once you make it past to the merge and everyone has that one moment that to themselves that just enhances their character. Like with Princess Peach, the main thing is when they get to the Star Wars chapters, Peach finds out that she is a fictional character, and she kind of realizes like, well, the people, because one of the characters is Let's Play Lenny, otherwise known as Guru Larry, if you follow YouTube, and she asks him, it's like, well, what do you people say about me? And Larry, because I'm going to call him Larry, basically responds like, well, you're just a princess. You're just there to get rescued by Mario. And that actually kind of shakes Peach to the core because she realizes that nothing she does matters because to everyone else, she's just a thing. She's just an object. And she kind of goes through this introspection of wanting to win, not for the money. She's like, a fun fact about most of the characters in the merge, with the exception of Doofenshmirtz, none of them care about the money. And that actually makes it all the more enjoyable because it carries more weight because now it's like they don't care about winning. They all like, we don't care who wins. Like, we just want to see this to the end. And pretty much everyone has that vibe except for Doofenshmirtz. Spoiler alert, Doofenshmirtz doesn't win. Peach does. But it carries more gravitas. It carries more weight. that makes the adventure so possible. But going back to Peach, she doesn't want to win for the money. She wants to do it because she knows she realizes that there's a lot of people watching. There's a lot of people who see her as just this princess, this little prize at the end of an adventure for Mario, to just as a justification for wanting to win, which is very much true. Princess Peach is very much the archetypical face of the damsel in distress. When people think of that specific trope, they think of her. And so the journey of her simply wanting to change people's perception, like going on this adventure, going through all these hardships, wanting to willingly convince people. It's like, no, I'm willing to help make you change your perception on me through fire and brimstone. I'll put my body on the line. I'll destroy. I will personally destroy it. And if it means I'm seen as more than the damsel, I'm seen as something more. And wanting that sense of what Mario had, that sense of adventure, that sense of wonder that she always heard Mario have when he went to save her, and she wants to experience that. And it makes Peach such a relatable character. It makes you it actually makes you cheer for when she kind of goes through all her turmoil, where she goes through all her troubles, and her friendship with a character named Marcus, who's based off a real life rapper. It's very touching and emotional. And when she won the whole thing, it actually brought a tear to my eye, because you'd at the beginning, they're like, it's Peach and Beatrice. They both say, like, doesn't matter who wins. Like, whoever wins, wins. And it's like, yeah, whoever wins, wins. No hard feelings. And, Peach overcoming everything, all the hardships, all that sort of fulfillment of finally feeling what Mario felt. It was so raw, and it was so fulfilling, and it made, in my opinion, Peach probably the best protagonist out of any of these stories. Each of the Total Drama stories had a protagonist. With everything 1 and 2, you technically had Lenny and Yusei. Infinite 1, I believe, more or less you more or less had Charlie, kind of sort. Yeah, I guess you could say you kind of had Charlie. But then no, not really Charlie. You had no, with Infinite 1 and 2, you had Edward. With Cruz, you had Ryuko, and with Endless, you had Peach. And same thing kind of happens with Indy. With him, he's a fish out of water. It's like, because he's from like the 1930s, 1940s, and so he's brought into this, like, way into the future, and he's like, and first he's like confused, like, well, how am I? And he basically acts like a fish out of water. But then he basically adapts, and he becomes like kind of the team leader next to Rick Sanchez, because it's Rick Sanchez. Like, come on, it's Rick Sanchez. If he's not being the leader, he's basically telling you, it's like, I don't need your tea, I don't need your booze. What's that? How does that mean go? Oh yeah, your booze need. God damn it! Your booze mean nothing. I heard what makes you cheer. I know I butchered that one. Don't laugh. And Indy does come in his own as the story goes on, where he becomes like the big leader. He becomes like, oh, I'm going to help you. He's the guy that everyone starts to rally upon, especially once the merge happens. With like, everyone kind of defaults to Indy, including Peach, including Beatrice. Everyone kind of defaults to Indy, and he's like, don't look at me. All right, let's do this. And it, just like Peach, it makes Indy such a relatable character because you have a sense of feeling that weight on his shoulders, that sense of responsibility of him wanting to do everyone justice. And of course, just like Peach, he finds out he's a fictional character, at which he kind of gets like completely embarrassed when it's revealed that he kind of had. I don't know if it's true because I haven't seen the Indiana Jones. He kind of slept with an underage girl, and he's like, "Well, it was perfect for the time. She consented." Dang. But you left her at the marriage. She's like, "I left her at the altar. I gotta save the world." And he was like the one that everyone that kind of broached the idea of like, you know, whoever wins wins. Like, and everyone's like, yeah, whoever wins wins. And he even gets his individual times to shine. Like in the Hogwarts chapter, he has a conversation with Dumbledore because he actually wants to willingly stay behind in Hogwarts because he lived through World War II and he doesn't, and he realizes like I have an out. I can stay here. I can just say I can avoid World War II. I can avoid all that turmoil. I can avoid all that pain and suffering, and I can be like the Muggle teacher at Hogwarts for the rest of my life. And Dumbledore gives him like a pep talk to basically kind of give him that sense of adventure. It's like they need you. They need your leadership because of course Dumbledore is like super smart like that. He's Dumbledore. And I encourage him to like continue the adventure and everything. And also Beatrice, she basically the odd one out of our team because she kind of has some standards and she didn't like the way that Rick was bullying her, but it wasn't really that bully. It was Rick being Rick, and then she perceives that as like always a constant affront and basically deflecting that. Basically, uh, what's the word? Projecting. Yes, there it is. Projecting all her pains on the Peach, and that's like the main sort. Beatrice is kind of like the main antagonist, or I guess you could say the closest thing the story has to an antagonist because she directly opposes Peach for a large portion of the story. However, they do eventually make up and become friends, and they start to see each other. So it is what it is. She does try to help out. She is very kind, but she kind of suffers a breaking point, and again, it pushes the idea of perception. She perceives that she was being insulted, basically being ostracized by everyone, namely Rick, and she projected that on that per. She projected that perception onto Peach and basically became a bully to her and just treated her like dirt because she was trying to protect the idea of perception, of just have everyone perceive her as a bully, as someone with like the Slytherins, like ha ha ha, and stuff like that. It makes Beatrice a three-dimensional character. And there's other characters. Like there's Doofenshmirtz who only came on the show because he wanted to give the money to Vanessa. And of course he basically willingly leaves because he realizes, why not? I can make a lot more money working with Wonka. You have Amethyst with wanting to do like a little the closest thing the story had to an alliance of like the short stack squad. I know it's called the shorty squad, but I like them. They're all short stacks, especially Amethyst. Like, come on, she's a short stack, and basically wanting to have the same to fulfill the same responsibilities as Pearl and Garnet as a leader, and she kind of suffers from an external crisis because she feels she let them down and doesn't live and believes she doesn't live up to the legacy of how Pearl led and Garnet led, and she wants to be like them in that way. And there's even like other characters, like even Tomoko with like the whole idea of like she's like so desperately wanting to be popular. Like there's a chapter near the end where she gets eliminated where like uh Amethyst and Yao, they basically tell her, it's like, well, why don't you put this soda down your pants? And she like, and Beatrice watched her literally open up the skirt, just pour the thing down her skirt into her panties. And it's supposed to, and it perfectly captures the idea of Tomoko. Even though I never really heard of Watome, because I actually had to look that up to find out who Tomoko is. It perfectly captures the vibe of who she is and what she does. And that makes a lot of these characters really, really strong in that way because you have that sense of these characters, even if you don't know who these characters are. Like I never knew who Beatrice was. I never knew who Tomoko is. You had that sense of camaraderie and that sense of knowing who they are. Like even like understanding who they are, where they come from, who they wanted to be, how they wanted to do things. It was really refreshing to see a take on these characters that stayed so true to their characters that make you want to learn more about those characters. This story actually made me want to watch a couple clips of Watomame, mainly just so I can learn more about who Tomoko is. That's something that rarely happens. That sense of wanting to know more. However, once you get to like before the merge, most people are like cannon fodder. Tomoko is really the main, like the only big exception. There is also Wednesday Addams, but her main thing is like she's just very snarky. It's Wednesday, of course. It's gonna be. Oh, before I move on to Connor and the interns, I will say about Peach. She does have, there is a very noticeable quirk, and this also bleeds into the idea of perception. When Peach gets introduced, she mainly just acts like the classical Peach. She doesn't have any lines besides, oh, Peachy's got it. Ooh, sweet. Basically, just stock of voice lines from her debut era. Like, probably like Mario Party, Mario 64, the first time she gets voice lines. And then she dies temporarily. Like, they're in Pinata Island. Wednesday hits her in the head with a statue. She kind of falls and cracks. And then she starts acting off and then she starts acting not like Peach. And then she kind of becomes Peach again. So it's like 3 eras of Peach. Like you have the classical era, the Peach that kind of happened in like a couple chapters near the merge is kind of her acting like, I guess you could say, her early to mid 2000s version of Peach, where she's she's starting to she's kind of doing more and being less of a damsel. And then of course we have the Peach for the rest of the story, who's basically more modern, who's basically the modern Peach. So we have like 3 different eras, which is a nice touch. I know that's not really the intention, but it's kind of unintentionally the intention. But let's move on to the hosts. I will say this: the author does like the best job with the interns because one, there is not a shit ton of them. There's really only like 2 interns worth talking about. That's Star-Lord and a character named Yurdi. And Yurdi's he's just Yurdi. He's like, I'm a squid. And Star-Lord is Star-Lord. Like, he talks about like 80s. He's basically a big goofball. Of course, he's like hilariously when Star-Lord was there, when Peach and Indy like finds out they're fictional. It's like, am I fictional too? It's like, yeah, you're part of you're technically related to him because Indiana Jones was made by Disney, was bought out by Disney. It's like, and everyone's like, and Indy's like, oh god, he's gonna hate it too. It's like, I'm a movie star. Who plays me? Chris Pratt. I don't know who that is, but he sounds awesome. And he's just a big goofball. Like I said, it helps that 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 Star-Lord is actually an active part of the story. He's not like just in the background. He's actually very, very involved, like almost as involved as Connor. And again, even with like you're not counting Yuri and Connor, there's really only like Chewbacca. Hilariously, they even did like a joke relating to Indiana Jones being played by Harrison Ford. It's like, well, I wanted to get Han Solo, but looks at Indiana Jones. There were complications with that. Yeah. So we got Chewbacca. And then you also had who else? There was Jeremy, who's basically just a douchebag, according to Connor. And then you also had like a slime thing that weirdly reminded me of Lemmy from Zone Archives. I don't know why that reminded me of Zone Archives. A big gelatinous oh, that's why. Lemmy. Oh yeah, Zone slime pet. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, but again, the only interns you actually really care about is Star-Lord, because it's Star-Lord, and in the fact he's so involved in the plot. Hey, this is how you do interns right. You don't make you don't put a lot. Isn't that right, Gar? No, Gar, don't become a slime too. No, just keep the Ginyus. I don't know where that came from, but let me move on. Connor. Oh boy, Connor. I like the fact that the author, in order to sell the whole different vibe, the idea of perception more, that we didn't get Chris McLean. Chris McLean does show up at the end, like I believe I said that earlier. Apologies, I did like several takes because the recording software kept turning off. So I had to keep repeating myself, so my brain is going to mush. And Connor is pretty much the polar opposite of Chris. He's very lethargic. He's very relaxed. He's very charismatic. He calls himself the god of late night television. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know why. I gotta stop doing that. As you could kind of like, if Chris is like a sadist and Conan might be a masochist, it was like vague, easily interpretable ideas that he might be masochistic. I could be reading. I'm more likely reading too into it, but Connor very much is basically very different. Like he willingly helps him out. Like instead of leaving them behind, like with the Simpsons thing I mentioned earlier, like because he realizes that he kind of goofed up on the fact that Simpsons doesn't have a story, so he gives him riddle because like, well, I want to help you, but I can't give it away because that makes things easy. So I'll give you a riddle, and hopefully you can figure it out. Which they do figure out. I actually found out in that chapter that Conan O'Brien worked on The Simpsons. I didn't know that. But yeah, Connor is such a great character. Yeah, he's a great host. He has a different vibe than the other Chris's, especially the more sadistic Cruise Chris. But yeah, I don't really have anything more to say about. I do want to talk about Larry, but I don't know if I should because I talked about the other characters more than enough. And not to mention the only thing with Larry, he's basically just a big exposition box. Very good at what he is, basically just doing exposition of showcasing each of these worlds that they go to because he's a pop culture guy. So he kind of solves the act of like, oh, this is where we are. Especially when like they end up on Tatooine, and he's like, well, Indy, we're in your sister series. Curse you, Lucas! And everyone starts mistaking him for Han Solo because of course they mistake Indiana Jones for Han Solo. And also the fact that Larry kind of becomes a gem because Rick's like, all right, I'm using the Senator. Guru Larry, I'm gonna kill you. Become a gem! Nothing happened. And he becomes a gem, and he's like, he has like the force powers. There's even a funny moment in the Tatooine chapter where he's like, he pushes a robot, and it's like, and everyone's like, oh, he has the force. Like, do I have the force? Nothing's happening. And he brings the robot, and he has like, he basically gets like Magneto's powers, like, aha! Yes! Not exactly Magneto's powers. He has magnetism. Larry gets like control over electronics, which I can't remember. Technokinesis. There it is. But yeah, this is a great group of characters. My only complaint about that is the fact that a lot of the characters are cannon fodder. But again, that's fine in this context because the author wanted to focus on a very, very small core group of characters to really carry this, to give that sense of perception away. But I talked about the characters enough. Let's move on. Grammar. There are grammar errors scattered across the story, but they're not a big deal. You're easily able to figure out what's going on. Most of it is just a letter miss. Basically, more or less just a word missing here or there every so often. It's not a big deal, and your brain can. And if you're good enough at reading, you can figure out where each of the grammar errors are. You can easily just mentally fill in the blanks. So it's not a big deal unless you're a grammar Nazi. Then you didn't need that. But then again, when are fan fiction readers grammar Nazis? Don't answer that. Pacing and writing. This is another touch with this. I'm only going to talk about the second half with this part because it is actually kind of a very, very neat detail. But when it comes to the writing of the story, it takes a very, very, very quirky approach where depending on what world they're in, the writing will actually change. This is something that some people will actually not notice. But if you actually read everything carefully enough, you'll see each individual where they go actually changes depending on what location we're at. So like with Hogwarts, it reads very much as close as Norbert could get to reading like a Harry Potter story. Lots of very, very complex exposition, lots of pseudo flowery prose, which is J.K. Rowling's kind of calling card. There were some dialogues. There's a whole talk between Indiana Jones and Dumbledore. There's usually always like a big, like heartfelt speech. But then you get to Willy Wonka, and instead of being this overly complicated, it's very simple. When I hear horn, never mind. The Willy Wonka chapter turns into like a very silly, whimsical, like very, very simply written, just jaunt through Wonka's factory. But then you also have the Samurai Jack chapter where there's barely, if any, dialogue except when the Scotsman shows up, because of course it's Scotsman, because Jack barely talks, and there's a lot of quiet introspection of them exploring, watching the area, and lots of just not a lot of dialogue. These are things that not a lot of people are going to catch, but like I said, if you pay close enough attention, you can actually see. You can literally see everything. Like my favorite change is like when you go to the Simpsons world, and once they run into the Simpsons, it becomes like very cartoony. The Simpsons chapter actually contains my favorite joke in the story, believe it or not, with like Princess, where like everyone's about to go, and Peach is like, "No, wait, we gotta do something real quick," and everyone's like, "What?" And then it goes to the Quickie Mart with like a Pooh crying on Peach's shoulder. It's like, you were my best customer who bought so much stuff in the 3 months you were here. And Peach is like slowly patting him on the back and just looking forlornly towards everyone. It's like, and everyone's like, God damn it, Peach. And if you actually read that part, it reads exactly like you would read a gag of The Simpsons. It's a nice detail. That's why I mentioned it. And even with the pacing of the first half, which is very much fast paced, because again, there's it's very much a coin flip. Like the first half is very fast paced, second half is very slow paced because it's trying to set up because it's paying off a lot of stuff from the first half that is very fast paced. But yeah, that is the pacing. Would I recommend this story? No. Hold on. I bet you're thinking, wait, no, you just gave this story a lot of applause. Let me finish. This story, it has been a very, very, very long time since I've read a story that hit me right in the heart, that gave me a genuine sense of joy to read it, a genuine sense of wonder to read, a genuine sense of adventure, of thrills, of great introspection. It made me think, it made me cry, it made me smile. There's not a lot of stories that can evoke this sort of emotion in me because as a critic, I have to try and be as biased as possible. But this story touched me. The idea of trying to prove to everyone that you're more than what people perceive and trying your hardest to try and convince them to change that perception, like with Peach, or that sense of leadership, of letting the people you care about down, like with Amethyst, or the sense of responsibility, of leadership with Indy and with Athena, a sense of fun and quirkiness, like with Marcus and Lenny. There's there's no way I can do a simple yes, I would recommend it because I don't think this story deserves a simple recommendation. It has been a very, very long time since I legit gave a story this title. And I honestly think this story honestly earned this. Hold on. Yes, I am putting this story among the very best of the best. This story deserves it. This story deserves to be read. This story deserves to be cherished. The fact that this story has only 164 reviews is a crime. This story deserves more. This story deserves 200, 300, 400, 500 reviews. This story was something. When I came into the story, I'm going to be real. When I came into the story, I came up with this story with like somewhat low expectations because the other three stories were average. Like out of the other three, Infinite was by far the best, but it's not something I would go back and reread because at the end of the day, it's only a slightly above average story. No offense to Mean King, but that's just my opinion. I still think it's a good story, but nothing I wouldn't really write home about. And as I read this story, the first couple chapters, I thought it's going to go the same way. But then Peach got knocked out, and then Peach started acting different, and then it started getting more complex. It slowly started tripping that veneer and giving us that idea of perception of just everyone not only having fun, but that sense of wonder as they went to each world. And I got more and more engrossed, and I realized this is something special. This is something completely different from what I was expecting. And I think that deserves to be rewarded. Like the last time I put a story here was this story. And even then, I very hesitantly put that on there because at the end of the day, I only put it on there for the world building, which was amazing. It's just everything else was mid. That's why I consider this like one of the most overrated fan fictions of all time. But this story deserves this story deserves all the praise it has. I'm not. There ain't no ands, no buts, no coconuts. Just pure, unadulterated. Just that sense of wonder. My favorite part, Peach. Like honestly, the author, the author. What the author did with Peach was just nothing short of was nothing short of a masterpiece. The idea of seeing Peach, she comes in, she acts like a bimbo, she gets knocked out by Wednesday, she technically dies, and then she starts to act different, and then she starts to act more like Peach, and you get a sense of Peach wanting to, Peach being Peach, like wanting to be altruistic and everything, and then she's slowly losing herself, and then she kind of builds herself. She willingly builds herself back up because she realizes that no, it's not what of realizing of what people playing, like the idea of being perceived as a bimbo, a thing to be won, an object to be grabbed, and her knowing that while she knows she probably won't be able to convince everyone, she wants to try and convince as many people. And that even leads to like a very small moment near the end where she comes across a Game Boy Advance, and the Game Boy Advance has like an actual cartridge of the original Mario game, and she actually starts playing it, and it kind of brings it all around circle. It's and what the author did with Peach is just no words can't describe it anymore. It was a masterpiece with her. What would I change? So there's three things I would change. Two very minor, one at least somewhat major, but you don't have to change. You don't have to add these because honestly, at the end of the day, these changes are just so inconsequential. You can literally just throw them in the trash and nothing. First thing, I would at least add a chapter at the beginning to kind of show you where each character is from a fandom. I get why you didn't want to do that because one of the characters, Roy Brown, two of the characters, Yurdi and Roy, they're massive spoilers. So it makes sense why you wouldn't want to put those character lists where those characters are from. There's also Guru Larry, who's Let's Play Lenny in the story, but he's based off Guru Larry, a YouTuber. And that would kind of be awkward to figure out how would you put him where. And also you also have Marcus, who's basically based off a real world rapper, Tyler the Creator. There wasn't much you could do with him either, so I can kind of see why you wanted to do that. But you could probably just have all those characters like, oh, these are all OCs, and then place all of them because it kind of got awkward because I didn't know where Beatrice was from. And some people who read the story and don't go on AO3, they probably won't know where everyone is from. So having kind of like a catalog where each fandom they're from, so you can find out who they are and what they look like, would kind of help. Second minor thing. This actually has to specifically do with Guru Larry. Norbert went the entire story without doing a single joke related to that diabolical, dastardly, darn, conspicuous liar named Peter Molyneux. For context, in Guru Larry's channel, more specifically when he does like the fact hunt stuff, he always has a running gag where he kind of throws a barb at known video game liar Peter Molyneux. Peter Molyneux is like very infamous for being a guy who constantly overhypes everything and just doesn't back it up because he lies. If you want to do the knockoff thing because it's not Guru Larry, you can always just do the other big liar in the gaming history, Todd Howard. It's on it. I would honestly just add a joke somewhere. You can literally add it anywhere. Like I was expecting a Peter Molyneux joke. I didn't get a Peter Molyneux joke. I was kind of disappointed. But again, that's such a minor thing that it doesn't really matter. But the final thing actually has to do with Tomoko. Now, Tomoko is actually kind of in the same vein in this story as Glass Joe was in Infinite. It was a character that was made to not be able to win. So I was like, okay, Tomoko is more likely not going to win. However, the one, and this is honestly my only real complaint with this story, just as one complaint, is I don't like how Tomoko went. Don't get me wrong. Her leaving on her own terms because she has she wants to try and be more confident in life. That's admirable, and it does fit, I think, I believe does fit with the character. But my issue was the matter of when. This is like the same. Oddly enough, that's like the same issue I had with Glass Joe. I just didn't know. I just didn't like how he went out. I honestly hope he fixed that chapter. It just made Chris a jerk to everyone. I don't know if it's true or not, but one can dream. So here's what I would have done for Tomoko's elimination, because the author had an out, because that chapter, Connor basically said, "Oh, you're all safe from elimination. No one's going home." Add another chapter right here, somewhere between Hollownest and Gotham, and you can have it set up that since no one's going to elimination, they have to extend the episode another hour. So Connor is like trying to scramble to figure out where to go. So he's like, he brings everyone into the main room. He brings out like a gigantic wheel with like pictures of everyone's faces, with the exception of Roy, Larry, and Till. Roy and Larry because they're based off, because the wheel will have the pictures of them, and whichever face it lands on, they're going to go to that world and do the challenge there. So Larry and Roy, since they're based off the real world, can't count them, and Tails can't be on there because they actually did a challenge on Mobius. So, and he's like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with the furries again. So basically, he tells them like, okay, we're just gonna have this wheel. We're gonna make it up as we go along. Spins the wheel, lands on Tomoko, and so they go to Tomoko's version of Japan, and he's like, all right, I'm going to figure everything out, stay here for a little bit, go why. And this chapter would focus specifically on Tomoko's relationship with Amethyst and the rest of the Shuri Squad. So they basically talk about like the other teams will be involved too, but it's going to be focused on Tomoko. Have Tomoko, try and, because at the end of Hollownest, she's like, I want to be more confident, stuff like that. Have her trying to experience that. Try and put words to practice, like, because honestly, it just felt kind of hollow that we didn't even at least try, because it honestly didn't feel like her specific character arc was finished. Like, okay, she got words of advice to try and be more confident, believe like, oh yeah, you could be popular by just being yourself. I honestly think this would have been a situation where you needed to put words to practice. Hence why we go to Tomoko's school. Connor Brink comes in, works an emergency deal out with the principal, and here's how the challenge works. Inside the school, there's about 50 students. Each student has a question. It could be any question. They can ask any question. One of the students is hiding the statues. You have to find where the statue is. Basically, in order to get the statue, you got to answer the question and ask them, do you have the statue? I don't know much about Watome, but I believe there's probably a bully character in there. Have the statues be in the hands of a bully character. So basically, all three of them, they go into school, they wander around, they ask and answer questions. It also kind of fulfills in the quota of like anime, because I don't think there's like no worlds that were in any part of the story that was actually based off an anime. So it kind of, you had anime characters, but you didn't have an anime world. So yeah, you put that. The Shuri Squad, they find the bully, and they start bullying Tomoko. Like, you're not good enough to to make it farther in the competition, and they kind of let her down. And then the rest of the Shuri squad, Amethyst, Yao, and Tails, they basically, they hype her up. It's like, you can do it, just answer it. It's like, and Bentley's like thinking, it's like, I wonder if they have it. So they kind of build, and they actually apologize to Tomoko for kind of treating her like garbage. And Tomoko kind of bigs herself up. She's not letting him get her down. She walks up to us like, ask me your question. The bully asks her a question that Tomoko can't answer. Tomoko gets it wrong. It's like they all laugh at her, and then Bentley's like, Bentley goes like, gets it right. It's like, ah! And it's like, they answer it, so they have to give it to her. And that kind of gives Tomoko the reality chance, like, no, I need to, she got everyone, she got like actual genuine friends and acceptance from the Shorty squad. And then you can literally have her be eliminated, like willingly, despite even winning, say like, I would like to go. So it ends Tomoko's character on a high note of her getting that single satisfaction, that one big satisfaction. The fact that, she has the people. She won that. She more or less won that. You can probably even have like Bentley, like, or but even better, you can have Tomoko actually get the answer right. To even have that big high note, so that I can do this. I can go back to school. I can be better to what they perceive me to be. And, she willingly asked Connor, it's like, can I stay here? And then leave. And they're like, why? But you won. It's like, I think with everything going on, I don't think I need to be on this contest anymore. I'm a better person now. I don't need the money. It's like, but it's going to be like 10 million. Wait. All right, I'm going to die. But yeah, that's honestly what I would do. And then just continue the chapters as is. So yeah, that is Total Drama Endless. There's not much more I can say about the story. This has been, I guess you could say, this story is truly endless. Wink, wink. I had to do one corny joke. Connor's based off Conan. I think he does corny jokes. I had to. So this has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.